It should. Perfect. Okay. Hopefully some more people join, but in the interest of the fact that this finishes at lunchtime, we may as well get started. So good morning and thank you for joining today's webinar, which will wrap up ENL's Youth Leadership Programme for 2023. The session is an hour and a half long. During this time, we're going to hear presentations from our 4 participants who are all young disability rights activists, and they have learned about the disability law and policy context by spending 1 week with a disability rights organisation in a different EU country. And they've shared their personal experiences from their home country with the organisation they visited. And today we're going to learn about their unique experiences. So there'll be time after the presentations for questions and discussions. So if you have a question for a particular participant, please note it down to ask at the end. And yeah, I think that is nearly everything in terms of housekeeping and an introduction. So I'm going to hand over to our first participant, Katarina, who is from Ukraine and visited the Kinnis organization in Finland. So yeah, Katarina, you're okay to go ahead and share your screen?
Yes, sure. Good morning, everyone. Do you see my screen?
Yeah, we do.
Great. So good morning. My name is Katarina Sherbina, and I was in Finland with Kunas Association. And here is my experience. But firstly, I want to go to my background. My first degree was in nuclear physics, but I decided to study management this year to find myself in communitarian public sector and contribute to disability movement. I'm a member of Ukrainian Parents Association for Spina Bifida and Hydrocephalus Lights of Spirit and a coordinator of their youth group. I'm also a member of International Federation for Spina Bifida and Hydrocephalus and a member of their advisory youth group. I myself have spina bifida, and till the visiting Kunis Association, I faced only with my kind of disability and was focused only on our challenges. This trip has indeed broadened my view on disability rights situation, and today we will figure out how. Currently, I live in Belgium, but originally I'm from Ukraine, and I would love to advocate for our rights in this country. So today I will compare experiences from Finland and Ukraine. Let's discuss disability movement in Finland. Students with disabilities have founded the Kunis Association at University of Helsinki in 1973. They wanted to go to the lectures like any other students, but barriers of built environment prevented them. Human rights of persons with disabilities were brought out. At the same time, there were liberation movements of other minorities, so people with disabilities are considered as any other minority. The name of Kunis is literally translated as threshold, because there were too high threshold in Helsinki University in the 17th. Kalle Konkola was one of the founder and famous leader. Today, this is one of the oldest and influential disability organizations in Finland. It's the only organization in Finland that is people with disabilities own organization and run by people with disabilities themselves. Kunis Association is mostly funded by the Finnish Ministry of Social Affairs and Health. Assistance Info. This is a national development initiative that is run by Kunis Association and has staff of 6 people. There are now about 110 participants in the network. So sectors, associations and organizations, service providers, municipality actors, governmental actors, and learning institutions. This is open network for all communities, corporations and actors who want to develop personal assistance and to support the ideology of independent living and personal assistance. This is funded by the Finnish Ministry of Social Affairs and housed and guided by state. What is the values and goals of Assistente Info? Disabled service users are in the center of all they do. All persons who need personal assistance should get it, including children and people with learning disabilities. If a person can't or won't work as an employer of assistant, there must be another way of organizing assistance. Assistente Info provides materials, education, and guidance, and does the development work. The Young Convention on Rights for People with Disabilities in Finland and Ukraine. There is comparisons between Finnish and Ukrainian implementation of convention, and they are the main um, differences. Despite Ukraine has ratified convention earlier than Finland, Finland has released more rights for people with disabilities. The most visible difference is in accessibility. Visiting Finland for only 1 week, I enjoyed accessible transport and buildings using a wheelchair. To compare with Ukraine, I didn't even have a wheelchair and doctors never proposed me any technical assistance. So accessible healthcare is the first obstacle in my home country. But if you offer it a wheelchair, you face with thresholds, stairs in public transport, and make you a hostage of your apartment. Another crucial part is that while Finland develop personal assistance services and educate people with disabilities how to live independently, Ukrainians mostly rely on care of their relatives and institutions. Also, a level of financial support is very different. The people with disabilities in Ukraine can't afford not only the rent apartment, but base medical products. The recommendations on accessible information were proposed in our ministry only this year, and there are no consultations on how ask for satisfying our rights. So people with disabilities can be benefited from government only if they or their relatives are good in law and they are ready to fight with bureaucracy. Here is a break room in the Kunis Association, and I wish they would be in every workplace because it's really nice. Let's discuss further our activities. Culture for All. The Culture for All service promotes cultural services that are inclusive, equitable, and take diverse audiences and art professionals into account. They offer information and tools for workers in the cultural field to improve accessibility and knowledge of diversity. The service operates nationally in the field of art and culture. Its objective is to offer information and support to cultural operations on questions connected with accessibility and diversity. The Culture for Our Service collaborates in development work towards the inclusion of diverse audiences, not only with art and cultural institutions, but also with different audience groups. The service is supported by the Finnish Ministry of Education and Culture. The Council for Our Service also proposes information and instructions on accessibility and diversity. For example, you can find guides for improving the accessibility of cultural services and checklists to evaluate how accessible your environment and services are. Their website is accessible itself and could be a good sample for others. I hope it's shown here. And there is people from Kunis Association and from Culture for All Center. Speaking of culture, I can't forget about the culture representatives I was lucky enough to meet. Kika Korhonen is an artist and an art teacher. She creates beautiful pictures and teach other people to draw on behalf of the Kunis Association. You can see more her amazing works via the link. Sanni Purhonen, a poet, a literature critic, and a communication officer of Kunos Association. She has released a book of poems, If Only I Could Turn into Someone Else. I was honored to have this book directly from the author. The book is full of symbolism, pain, and sarcastic comparisons. In life, Sunny seemed like a really light and positive person, but her poetry is dark and deep. I've read the whole book and was reflecting the sense through my own life experience. I read it with an online translator, and even language wasn't a barrier. It inspired me to read it till the end on one breath, and became the first book I finished since the starting of my depression. Gunilla is one of the founders of Kunas Association. She have been studied languages at the University of Helsinki. Gunilla was very shy with speaking to people before she met Kalle Konkola. She has difficulties in speaking, but with support of peer activists, she started gathering big audiences to hear her words. She also used to be a wheelchair dancer, and she professionally taught dancing to people until she were retired. Yeah. Finnish Federation for Visual Impaired is an umbrella organization for Finnish associations of the visually impaired. They are experts in visual impairments and sight and advocates for the blind and the visually impaired people. On the picture, me with Sonia, coordinator of international affairs, and there are portraits or formal chairs of the Finnish Federation for Visual Impaired behind us. I lived in the Iris Center. It's a very accessible and affordable hotel. Also a service center for people with visual impairments, and they have school for guide dogs. At night, the roof of the hotel is illuminated in the colors of Ukrainian flag, and it's really touchy subject for me because they share their support for us. Youth Cooperation SEITI is a cooperation network of 5 disability organizations, the purpose of which is to organize leisure activities in different ways for physically disabled and chronically ill young people. SEITI also supports events planned and implemented by young people themselves. And the event of 25th celebration of Abilis Foundation. There were a lot of interesting and impactful people. In particular, former President of Finland and 2 former ministers participated in the event as speakers. They were on the celebration partly because they were also personal friends of Kalle Konkola from his political career and helped him in the founding of the Abilis Foundation. The Abilis Foundation has a variety of projects in different countries and in Ukraine too. I got a chance to build networking and discuss the possibility of creating for my Ukrainian NGO. On the photo, we together with workers of Kunas Association and together of Abilis Foundation. So who is Kalle Konkola? Kalle Konkola graduated as a Bachelor of Natural Sciences from the University of Helsinki in 1974. During his studies, Konkola got involved in students' politics, and after graduating, he founded the Helsinki movement with a few of his student friends. He served in disability organization as executive director, as editor-in-chief in the magazine, and in the Secretary General of the National Council for Disabled in these years that you see in. He served for a long time as a chairman and executive director of Kunas Association, and he was the founder and chairman of a board in 2010 of the Abilis Foundation, which supports development cooperation for disabled people. Kalle was one of the first members of parliament of the Green Party, and in the parliament, he was a member of the Social Welfare Committee. He also served as the first chairman of the Green League in the 1987 and vice-chairman in 1991. Kankola was a member of Helsinki City Council also. And Kalle was initially denied the right to a personal assistant in parliament. The current assistant system did not exist in the 80s. But Kankola took the matter to the administrative court, where he won his case. After this, the parliament hired him as an assistant to work as a secretary in the state's lowest salary category. Kalle Kankola was one of the first members with a disability of Finnish parliament. Thanks to him, a parliament became accessible. He is a real evidence that one young disability rights activist became a key to changing the rules of his country. My outcomes from the program. I think Ukrainians should establish strong disability rights movement and stand together with organizations of all sizes and directions which are working on disability rights. Also, people with disabilities by birth and people with received disabilities, particularly from army forces, could collaborate on advocacy for people with disabilities. We should raise awareness among people with disabilities about the possibility to live independently. And we should spread information about personal assistance through society to attract more potential personal assistance. People with disabilities should have a control on implementation of legislation on human rights overall, and particularly on disability rights, and participate in decision-making process. We should promote young disability activists because they would be exactly future representatives in the government and areas related to disability rights. My future plans. I'm going to join the Ukrainian human rights organization to participate in advocacy campaign for people with all kinds of disabilities. And since I live in Belgium, to join an organization that advocates for accessibility in Brussels and see how I can contribute to, because I also need accessible environment here, and I think a lot of people need. To continue my personal growing and strengthen my knowledge in rights for people with disabilities, and to advocate and speak out on European and international level, seeking opportunities for my home country and strengthen the community of disability activists, and eventually to find a job in the relevant area. Nothing about us without us is a slogan of mostly all of us, and it's a slogan that also share CONIS Association. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much, Katerina. That was a brilliant presentation. And as I said, if you guys have any questions, just please note them down, and we'll take them at the end, just so that we can go on next now to Mariam. Mariam, I'm going to share your presentation now, and you just let me know when you're ready to go ahead, okay?
Okay, that's perfect.
Okay, great.
All right. Hi, everyone. This is Mariam, and I'm so sorry. I have some technical difficulties here, so I can't turn on my camera. If that's okay, I'm so sorry about that.
I have it here. You can see this?
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna start, and I will let you know when to go to the next slide and such. All right. So as I said, my name is Mariam, and I am here in Norway. And I was in Albania for a week with the organization Together Now, where I have learned a lot of valuable things, and it was a really memorable experience. And today in my presentation, I will be talking about the challenges and initiatives in both Albania and Norway, which I have had time to notice, and I tend to talk so much, so I hope I don't pass the time I have. Okay, can we please go to the next slide? The first thing I the first thing I noticed when I was in Albania, in my first day, we had a small meeting, and it wasn't solely about this, but one thing I have noticed, and I thought it was really interesting, is the terminology. Well, we were discussing that a little bit, like the terminology that we use about people with disabilities, and I thought that was really interesting because um, we also have that discussion in Norway lately. So I thought that was a really interesting discussion, because people tend to disagree a little bit about the differences in preferred terminology about people with disabilities. Some people like to say people with disabilities. Some people like to say um, differently able, for example. So we were talking about like what is politically correct, and yeah, we had we some of some of the people who were present in the meeting had some disagreement about that, and we were talking about the ways it can impact our societies. And I thought that was really interesting because Norway and Albania, although we have different cultures, but we do have like the same discussions about that. And they were talking about how different terminology kind of belongs into different contexts, and how, for example, we didn't think it was really correct to use, for example, the term patient when we were talking about people with disabilities. Also, although some people think that was appropriate, I thought that was really interesting. How like different cultures maybe use like different terminology sometimes, but we do have the same um, discussion, and we did agree on a lot of mutual points. So I thought that was really interesting. And next slide, please. This is really weird. I tend to go to the next slide myself, so I have to remember to the next slide. When I was in Albania, I walked a lot in town, and one thing I noticed is that they have in Tirana really narrow streets. Um, I'm visually impaired. I don't use a wheelchair or anything, but I still thought they were really narrow. So I can imagine it's only maybe more difficult for people with wheelchairs. Um, so I thought there was, and we did talk about it also, and they were telling me that they noticed the same thing, and they do have this ongoing issue, and they were trying to communicate that to the municipality, but I mean, it's a whole city we were talking about, so um, it's not really easy to do that change really quickly. Um, and one also difficulty which they told me about in Together Now is the um, when they communicate their problems, they especially with like universal design, they tend to hear like, oh yeah, okay, I understand, but I don't know how to fix this. This is not something I know about. This is not my problem. Which is really unfortunate, but really common also here in Norway. Um, I have experienced this myself, and we actually in my city. I don't live in the capital. I don't live in Oslo, but in my city, and this is like kind of like the central of northern Norway. We have these stairs that go to the municipality office, and they are like super inaccessible. And we have told them a lot about this, and they're like, "Oh yes, wow, that's horrible, but we don't know how to fix this. Sorry, it's not a priority." So we do have the same issue, although I feel like some people think of Norway as this like really high standard country, which I mean, it is in some fields, but we do have also the same issues, maybe like uh, in different terms, but we do have the same accessibility issues in the streets, um, like like it was in Tirana. I have only been in Tirana, but they also told me that it was the same and maybe sometimes worse also in other cities. Um, can we go to the next slide? So this is kind of like a follow-up to my previous slide, as I was saying about Norway, that people have like higher expectations in Norway, which is sometimes true. We do have laws around newer buildings, and that they have to be universally designed and accessible to be kind of recognized. And as I remember, they told me they do have the same laws also in Albania, but not necessarily that they follow them, which is very unfortunate. In newer buildings in Norway, we do follow the laws, but we also have a lot of older buildings that are in use. For example, the university that I go to, it is definitely not universally designed. So this is one thing. And of course, we also have a lot of like, I have heard this so many times. I have so many friends who have been asking like, what is an accessible restaurant I can go to? What is an accessible museum I can go to? And I think this is really important, that it's not only hospitals and universities and these like essential things, but it's also to focus on things we can do in our free time, which are accessible. This is really important. One thing I have noticed, and I have been also to a conference in Tirana. They were talking about easy to read language, and I thought it was really brilliant. I will not say for sure, but I have not seen any initiatives about this in Norway. Um, I, I don't think I can say that we are not working on this, but at least not that I know of. Which I thought was a bit disappointing. I thought that was really interesting, and not only interesting, but like super important. I have been trying to remember how it was like, for example, when it was the outbreak of COVID-19, and how like the communication was and the language in like government websites in Norway and such. And okay, it was easy to read for me, but I wouldn't say it was like easy to read language. But at the conference I was attending in Tirana, they were talking about it, and they were talking about like how they were trying to pursue this issue, and I thought that was a really important focus. Um, I think, and they were saying like there are so many aspects to disabilities and how like we can approach issues, and it's really important to focus on the different aspects and not only focus on uh, like one part or one disability. So I thought there was a brilliant way forward, and they also are trying, they have the partnerships. They had the project, I think it was called Active, which I thought was really important, and like really, I'm really excited to see how it will be in the future. Can we go to the next slide? Um, One thing I have noticed about Together Now, I'm not sure, maybe I hope I got it correctly. But one thing I have noticed is that people like talk to them about issues they have found in accessibility, and they address them. I felt like they were kind of close to like to their members, and like they can just send them a like their issues, and like how what they have encountered as inaccessible, and they can just take it further. As I understood, of course, it's not that easy, but like yeah, that's kind of like the process in a way, and I thought that was really nice. In Norway, in the associations where I am a part of, where I'm active, we have our annual meeting, and then we talk about, well, you have to send you kind of like issue, and we discuss if we want to take it further into our implementation programs the next year, which is also a good way to do it. But I felt like in Tirana, in Albania, well, in Together Now, it takes it's easier to communicate the issues, which I thought was really nice, and it's really important because people kind of don't have this like high standards, like, oh, well, is my issue important? Should I communicate it further, or should I just live with it? Um, so I thought it was really nice to be like closer to the members. And also I was talking to Sorilla, the what is it called in English? Like the I can't remember the word, but like the sorry?
Director?
Yeah, director, thank you. As the director of the organization, and she was telling me that they were just like a few employees. I think there was 3 persons who were like employees that are like the main persons, and then they have some like external partners that they work with when the opportunity arises. So they're a small organization, but I think they are still, even there though they're small, they're doing a lot of important things. I'm mostly in Norway active in the Association for the Blind and Partially Sighted Youth. And we are also quite a small organization. I think we actually also have 3 employees, but we also have working groups, and we also have our board. So although they are not employees and they don't come to work every day, they do have their tasks and they work on different issues. We have like the international affairs working group, and we have the political working group, who do like their different jobs. And we're also, because we are the like main organization for the blind and partially sighted youth in Norway. So we are also divided into smaller groups. So, for example, I am a part of the northern region, and we do have our own board as well. But we also have just 3 employees. We are not that well. We are not that super big organization either. And they told me that their office is really small. I didn't have the opportunity to go there, but our office is really small as well. Um, and this is a picture of me in and Sarah in one of the conferences that we attended. I don't have so many pictures, unfortunately. I was really immersed in the moment, and I always forget to take pictures. Can we go to the next slide? So one thing that I have heard in actually it was also in the conference where the picture was from earlier, are the problems in accessible education, uh, amongst other things. And I think this is really sad, because like education is the most important uh, for for our society. But they told me that they have problems where they have issues with the pupils, that when they move higher up in like classes, and the classrooms are in like, let's say, the second floor, and people with wheelchairs, students with wheelchairs, are not able to go there because there are not accessible ramps or lifts. So and the schools some of the schools are not willing to move the classrooms down to where the students or the people can reach, um, which results in these young students having to either change schools or find another solution, which can be really stressful, of course. And also, we were talking about issues in higher education institutions, where, for example, people with visual impairment have difficulties getting their books on time, if at all. And this is also an issue that we have in Norway, which I have myself, that we have issues getting our curriculum books on time. I got my books in November, and I'm done with my exams in December. So this is an example. And I think, this is one more thing for students to worry about. And it's not, of course, it's not only about people with visual disabilities. It's a lot of um, a lot of different needs that people with disabilities can have, which can affect their learning. So I think this is a very unfortunate thing, because we are actually missing out on a lot of capacity that we can have in our societies, both in Norway and in Albania. Can you go to the next slide? We were talking also about employment initiatives and also the funding. And I have been told that there are a few initiatives in Albania for employing people with disabilities, but there are not so many. And of course, employers have their own like perceptions of people with disabilities, which can create some limitations. There are some policies in some companies that they have to employ a sole percentage of with people with disabilities, as I understood. In Norway, we also have the same issue with like employment. I have seen many people who are rejected because of their disability. Also, we also have some places which like have this initiative and who employ people with disabilities. But we also struggle with this issue. I have seen a lot of people with disabilities talking about it and that they are unemployed, although they have high education and they have the capacity and they have the skills needed, but the employers tend to choose people with maybe like easier to adapt in their opinion into their workplace. Also, Suela told me that in their organization Together Now, they rely mostly on funding from foreign organizations or like foreign partners. And here in Norway, in the Association for the Blind and Partially Sighted Youth, we mostly get funding from different external partners in Norway or like the government also, which I guess it makes it easier. For us, we don't really have to like worry. We can just send an application to our partners and we get the funding, which I think is it's a really good privilege. I think Suela was telling me that they don't have that much access to funding and they kind of, as I understood, like have to like prioritize their projects according to that. Next slide, please. One thing which I have found to be, and it was also one of my interest points also before I traveled to Albania, is how it's like in Albania when it comes to personal assistance laws. And I have asked actually a few people about this. And one thing I have understood is that people in Albania with disabilities, they apply and they get I think, as I understood, like a certain amount of money to use to give to a personal assistant. But it is not enough, of course. So most of the time, people have to also like cover the expenses of having a personal assistant themselves, which is very unfortunate. And it also makes you have to limit how you need assistance and also what kind of things you need assistance for. And it's not entirely possible for everyone. So that is very unfortunate, in my opinion. In Norway, I feel we are a little bit more privileged there, because it is an ongoing issue that is very difficult to get the decision to have a personal assistant. Like not everyone can get that, and you have to send like really huge importance for this to have like a personal assistant, and you have to send this like really long application, and you have to send a lot of good reasons. But once you get it, the funding or like the salary for the personal assistant is through a partner company. So you don't have to worry about that, and you have your hours during the week, and then you can use them however you think is possible or is appropriate for your own needs, which I thought is good, and it's a really good practice of autonomy for people with disabilities, which maybe in for example Albania is lacking. And some people also have to rely on help from their family members, which is, I think, it's really extremely unfortunate because it's not necessary you always want that, and it's really important for the privacy of the person. However, also one of the conferences they were talking about some success stories that they have had in Albania. I have been told that there was some improvement in accessibility. They have been working on some of the streets in Tirana to improve them, and they have also been supplying uh, accessible parking, for example, in many places in Tirana. But it's of course not that good in other cities. So they have a lot of work to do there. One thing also I have been told, but I wasn't told that directly, so I was not able to ask questions. But the person was saying that they were also able to build a few like centers uh, for people with disabilities, which they have, but it was not through Together Now, which they have um, worked on themselves in that organization, and then the municipality was able to take over, and still the center was continued to work. I'm not sure actually which accessibility, which disability the center is for, but it was for a group of people with disabilities. I'm not sure honestly, but I thought there was a really good initiative, even though I was not able to get all the details because the person was in a hurry. So I hope there will be more success stories in the future. As I said in the beginning, success and accessibility is a really slow progress, but of course, if we work on that, it will happen. Next slide, please. So my concluding thoughts from the visit, I feel I can go on and on about it, but my concluding thoughts is that we need more advocacy work, both in Norway and in Albania, although maybe sometimes in different areas. But I was able to find a lot of common points, which we need to work on. As I said, the accessibility on the streets, for example, is one really important aspect. And also, we still we in the future, both organizations and not only these two organizations, but also Sohaila told me that they have many well, I think it was like more than Norway. They have organizations for people with disabilities, and I think one really important thing to happen is that the different organizations agree on the difficulties that they're facing, and it's also in Norway also that we all become a one team in the country and like work for the same issues and have the same common goals as much as possible, which is I think a really important thing to happen to be able to achieve um, as much as possible about accessibility for people with disabilities. That was all from me. I hope you will be able to ask questions in the end. Thank you so much, and thanks for having me, Albania.
Thank you very much, Mariam, and that was great. Just in the interest of time, I'll go straight on now to Alyssa, and I'm going to share the screen for her presentation as well. So yeah, Alyssa, just let me know when you're ready to go.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, if you're ready, I'm ready.
Okay. Perfect. Sure. Great.
This is the last one.
Sorry.
Okay, perfect. Hi everybody. Please don't pay attention to my band-aid, but last night I had a little accident. Everything is fine though. So I spent my week with the Independent Living Movement of Ireland, and it was a real great experience. Next slide, please. First of all, maybe it's the case I tell you something about me. I am studying law. I'm getting my bachelor degree in human rights of people with disabilities, and that's the main reason I decided to go to ILMI, because I wanted to learn more about independent living right. And I work in Rome. I'm Italian, and I work in Rome with two of the most important Italian association of people with disability. And I decided to go to this Irish association because we are very similar, but for what I could read online before applying. But at the same time, we have to face different challenges. So I thought that would have been very interesting to see how they work and how they face and react to the problems of people with disabilities in their country. Independent Living Movement of Ireland is an association that was established in 2092, and first as the Irish Centre of Independent Living. Its aim is to make sure that people with disability have the right to make choices, and they have total freedom and control over their lives. And of course, they can have a full participation in society as equal citizen. It was really interesting to see, because they have members that live all over Ireland, so they have to work mainly on Zoom or through platform as Zoom. And even though they have an office in Dublin, and this office is great. You can see a piece of that in this slide, and some other picture of it in the future slides. It's great because you can see that even if it's small and people work mostly from their homes, it's how can I say that, it's lived, it's full of life. They show you on every windows, they have photos of people who work with them, and of their activists, of their success, but also of the trouble they have to face. So you can really breathe in that office the spirit of this association. And it was really interesting, even because they have a completely different way of working, meaning that, of course, they have a vertical structure, but only we can say that they have this kind of a structure only on the paper, because they work together. I took part in several online meetings because, as I said, they work mainly online. And I saw how they work to every paragraph of the documents. Maybe it can mean that they are a little bit slow, but they are great, because you can see how they think about words that they are going to use as a group, and they try to keep in mind and to make sure that everyone's perspective is heard, and to find a common ground. That was really magical, to be honest, because you can see how every single person perspective was expressed and heard. Next slide, please. Thank you. During my visit, as I said, I took part. They involved me in their online activities. For example, they gave me the chance to take part in several of their projects, and I was in the company of their CEO, that's Damien, and who allowed me to take part in some very interesting meetings and gatherings. And I really was able to understand how this association worked, and they really made me feel like I was part of the group, because I saw that we share the same values and opinion, and that's really great, especially because they told me that they want to level up a little bit, if we can say that, and work even at the European level, because they want to make sure that people with disability rights are heard even in the Europe. So it was really, really nice to work with them. And as I said, they gave me the chance to understand what independent living really means. And we discussed together how DPO, meaning disabled people organizations, can work together and can work to implement people with disabilities rights. Next slide, please. Something that really impressed me is the fact that today, to be honest, they will launch their book that is about the story of their movement and of their association. It was really interesting to listen to them while they were explaining how this project was developed and how they had this idea, because it was really important to write their history and the history of people with disabilities activists, activists. And I think that's something we can learn from the Italian point of view. We can learn because it's we don't have this kind of books. So I think that is very important, though, to write our story, how we obtain the recognitions of our rights. So it's something that was really interesting. And then reading the book was really inspiring because we have a different story, but at the same time very similar. Both of the movement had a lot to learn to fight against pressures, external pressures from, I don't know, the parents of people with disability or other groups who wanted to talk, and we had to fight, to be focused on the fights for people with disabilities rights. So if you can, I suggest you to read this book. I know that it will be from today available online because it's really interesting, and I think that everybody can learn from it. Next slide, please. Okay. During the first day, I went with Damien to a meeting between partners of a project on employment inclusion, in which ILMI participates. This project wants to create a platform thanks to people with disability can try and find a job, because they said that in Ireland, even when a person with disability get a degree, it's very difficult for her or him to get a job because of stereotypes and wrong ideas on what means to be a disabled person. And it's very interesting because in this project they involved a lot of different associations and even some representative of employers. So it's was really cool because I had the opportunity to talk even about what we do and how we handle inclusivity in the jobs market in Italy. And I had a really interesting exchange with everybody who was there, and they gave me a lot of idea on how we can implement the jobs inclusion in my country. It was really interesting. And I also took part in several meetings they had with members of the parliament and politicians. One that is really stuck in my mind is the one you can see in this picture, and this one was about inclusivity in the school system, because in Ireland they still have special schools, meaning schools in which only people with disability can attend. So the ILMI is trying to create a school system in which people with disability can go and attend ordinary school, receiving all the support they need. Without being afraid, because they explained to me that a lot of parents are worried about letting their children go to attend an ordinary school because they are afraid that they won't get the support they need. So it was really interesting because we closed in Italy. I think we were the first European country to do so. We closed special schools in the 70s. But we still have some problems. For example, sometimes people with disability has has problems to get the support they need. I also attend a very important event. Next slide. Okay. I attended program about housing collective program because they wrote a strategy that will help people with disability in Ireland to obtain accessible house, because it's a really big problem in their country to obtain a place to live that is accessible and which they can really live. And I even took part in a meeting of the Voice program, that is a program that wants to teach people with disabilities rights, the tools that they can use in order to face the struggles and problems. The meeting I went to was about UNCRPD, and was really, really interesting. I had several discussions about the use of words. For example, they use the words disabled people and non-people with disability, because they said that disabled people, it's something that express better the social model of disability, which that says that disability is something that comes not from the person but from the environment. Next slide. Okay, this is the main event of the week, we can say. And it was about, it was the launch of the strategy, because the association I visited written a strategy plan for the next 3 years. And it was very interesting because there was there even the Minister of Disability of Ireland, that was the person who actually launched this strategy. The strategy has 3 pillars: human rights, collective empowerment, and social justice. And it was really emotional because you could see how they work on that, and was really inspiring the fact that they are all about involving people with disabilities, listening to them express their ideas and their needs in a way in which they can see respected their human rights. So it was a really, really, really good experience. This week taught me a lot, and it really changed how I think that the work as a people with disability rights activist can be done. Yeah. So next slide. And that's what I said. LMI showed me a different way in which associations of people with disability can work. In even showed me how we are different, but very same at the same time. And it was really, really inspiring. Yeah. Thank you so much. This is my presentation. I'm sorry if I went very fast at the same point, but I was afraid not to be able to say everything.
That was brilliant, Alyssa. Thank you. No, I don't think you were too fast at all. And we're still in good time. So Ivana is our last participant to present, and she is from Montenegro, and she visited Validity in Hungary. So I'm going to, again, just share my screen. Are you okay, Ivana? You can just let me know, like the rest, when you're ready to go.
I'm ready. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to send warm regards to you, and also to another participant. And let me introduce myself. I'm I'm Ivana Jankovic, and I'm originally a lawyer. I'm in the master studies of politicians. My topic is double discrimination of women with disabilities. I currently work for UNESCO in Montenegro, and I also work for the local and national organization of disability peoples. I'm a head of legal team in my town for in my organization, and with but our main work currently is the local plan of action for inclusion of people with disabilities. I joined your program because I wish new knowledge about disabilities, and I choose fidelity because through my activism I noticed that people with mental health problems are more discriminated from another from the society. So I wish to change it in my country, but also in Europe. Let's start my presentation. I hope my English is not so bad. Can you start, please? Yeah, in the first post I described the program. So the objective of the program was to give young people with disabilities a chance to spend a week with organization of human rights in different countries and sharing knowledge. So as I said, I choose validity in Hungary because as I said, I noticed through my activism that people with mental health problems are not included enough in societies. In my society, firstly, but I noticed that in Hungary is the same situation. Please, next slide. Next slide. Uh, 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 so I will talk about fidelity. Fidelity is term for a world of equality where emotional, mental, and learning difficulties are valued equally, where the inclusion of autonomy and dignity of each person is fully respected, and where human rights are realized for people without discrimination. Fidelity is non-government organization of human rights which promotes human rights for people with mental disability who they defend you, they defend people with mental disability, and they protect their rights. they work specifically in the institutionalization of people with mental disabilities, which they promoted by the film they made about the person who was there in institution. Then Fidelity made him to get out of institution. That film, it's great. I recommend you to watch it. About Pishti, yes, I will share the link in the group, but I didn't put it in my presentation because I have technical problems. Next slide. Well, my personal experience was fantastic. I gained new experience and get accurate with the work of the organization. I'm particularly interested in two projects. One of them is disconnected, which regards people with mental disability in institution. So Fidelity will do the monitoring of the of the accommodation of the people with mental disability, specifically access will be on a woman with disabilities, which are amazing. But I also find that they have difficulties with authorities because they prohibit them to do an announcement monitoring. So when they announced the monitoring, they were clean the houses for accommodation for people with mental disabilities. And another project is a benchmark which regards people with mental disability who commit crimes. They formalize special procedure, and the procedure which will be according to the convention of UN for people with disabilities. And I have to say that I make an arrangement to people from Fidelity to staying in touch about these two projects that means a lot for me, and I hope for them too. Next slide. Next slide. One of the events which I participated in was the convention, was the conferences in memoriam of Gabor Gumas. He passed away. He is a founder of one of the founder of Fidelity. He was an author. He participated in writing the Convention of UN for people with disabilities. So he worked in the committee of UN by 2012. He also make part of the council of the some advising for the Council of Europe, and he was so important for the Hungary, and you can find more on the special sites which regards to his life. They also make a biography book which is available online. But the most I like from the conferences is the part where when the participants criticizes Hungary government because they are pretty close from the civil society, and I think the Hungarian well, in my experience, Hungarian government is pretty close to any ways of cooperation, and people in Vadility said me that they don't actually have the cooperation with government. They don't have even any contact with the government. Please, next slide. So that's the pictures of, from the conferences that I took. It's nice memories, but also I have to say that Budapest is I would not say completely inaccessible, but is accessibility is not in the highest level. Public transport is partially accessible, and also the metro is partly accessible. The streets are not accessible. They are not flat, because I feel that in my case, but because I use wheelchairs, so I couldn't get in some place to see, for example, some monuments of Budapest. And I think the Hungarian people are not aware much of the human rights for people with disabilities. And I proposed the people from Fidelity to make more awareness from to they work, but I in my impression that the Hungarian government control all medias, and they they cannot actually use media to make it awareness about the human rights of people with disabilities. So I think the Hungarian government should do more for human rights at all. That's my experience from Hungarian. I hope so that I express myself correctly, and I'm have speech problems. Just let you know. That's it.
Thanks very
That's
much, Ivana. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Okay, so that's all
I
the
hope
presentations.
so.
And we have some time now for questions. So I was wondering if anyone has any questions, they can raise their hand. If not, I would go ahead and I would want to ask maybe Katarina, since you went first.
From for the colleague from Ukraine. I'm interested in the part about culture. And as I work for the Ministry of Culture in Montenegro, I would ask my colleague from Ukraine to share me that part of presentation, so I get some ideas to represent to my colleagues in Ministry of Culture, if you don't mind.
Yes, sure. What exactly you want to know?
The whole part you said about your talk about the culture.
Okay.
Uh,
So
if
in Finland, in Finland
Yeah.
there is a culture for all service, and this service provides expertise on accessibility and diversity in the cultural space, and also has projects like card for people in low income, who are not only people with disabilities, because it's not their policy to give just everyone, people with disabilities, this like tickets. They decided to do this only for those people who are really in need. And also they promote artists with disabilities and from other minorities too.
Okay. And yeah, and then maybe a good follow-on question. Is that okay, Ivana?
yes.
Oh yeah, a good follow-on question would be like, how active are young people in the Finnish disability rights movement?
Nowadays, young people in Finland are mostly in peer support groups, and they mostly don't want to be in a part of organizations, and they are activists, are themselves in social networks, and that's why Kunus organization also have problem with engaging young people in the organization. So I think it's a really good question to think in future, how to involve more people in disability rights organization in countries that are already have this accessibility and these opportunities to people with disabilities, how to keep them and how to involve young people to be part of organizations and represent our disability movement.
Yeah, that's very interesting, especially about the most young people being in peer support structures. Very interesting. And Mariam, a question I have for you is there any successful strategies used in Norway that you see could be used or applied in Albania from your experience?
I think mostly the one thing I thought of is maybe how we cope with the personal assistant, how like the laws we have around it in Norway. I think this is something that maybe could be used in Albania to improve, as I mentioned before, the autonomy of people who need the personal assistant. I think having the need for a personal assistant is for some people is already a little bit of yeah, well, like maybe some people don't feel like super comfortable about that, especially when it's like a friend or a family member helping without it being your choice. So I think maybe some more laws around it and also more support from the government maybe or other organizations who can maybe fund the process a little bit better, also financially, so that people have more hour to use without them paying for it themselves.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be really kickstarted. And then you also had a interesting slide on the cultural perceptions and terminology. How do you find around disability? How do you think that they impact the implementation of disability rights and accessibility initiatives?
I think they definitely impact it in a huge way because when you say that this person is a person with disability, um, you just talk about the person who has a disability, but then when you say that someone is a patient, for example, um, I think this is a huge perception issue because you are identifying the person as someone who is patient, and you are still kind of using like the medical terms to apply in a daily life situation or a yeah, more like outside of hospital situation, for example, which I think can be a little of a problem for other people to be able to see people with disabilities as someone, an ordinary person who just happens to have a disability. I think it's really important to identify people with disabilities, like yeah, ordinary people, um, in order for them, for us to get the equality that we are looking for.
Makes great sense. Perfect. And just so we can finish up on time, maybe I'll just ask one more question to Alyssa. What is the most important advice you have received about your work as an activist?
The most important advice I received is that we have to keep in mind the importance of the creation of a community of people with disability, the fact that we have to involve as many as people we can, and the fact that we have to keep in mind the fact that disability is not something that comes from the person, but from the environment who is not that is not accessible, and the fact that we have to work together and to remind that people has the right to self-determinate, but really the fact that we have to think about how we can engage people from different backgrounds and even fight for equality, not only for people with disability, but for every advantaged people. Because another thing that the Irish Association does is maybe to work, with migrants with disabilities. So that we have to fight for an accessible and equal world. That's really interesting for me. Yeah.
I think that's a good way to wrap up as well. So if there isn't any other inputs that anybody would like to make. I see Sani's comment about maybe organizations not being seen as cool to young people, which makes a lot of sense. So engaging young people, which is the point of this program as well, is the goal going forward. So I just like to say thank you to all the participants for your work, and for the host organizations for participating, and for everyone for joining today. I will just say that if it's okay with all the participants, I'll share the PowerPoints with everyone who joined, so everybody has the information. Perfect. And have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your lunch, and happy Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, you
Bye.
too.
Everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank
Nice
you.
listening. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.